Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and we're in episode 2 of our MiG-21 LanceR conversion from Icaerodesign. So as you can see here now, we've got the cockpit all mounted. So we've got it in place, the wash has been put down. That was just, I think I put just a gunk wash in from Flory Models, just a clay wash. Just something quick and easy that kind of brings out all the little details in the cockpit. Most of this area here is going to get covered up by the seat, but everything else is kind of put in there nice. It makes everything really pop. We've got the windscreen installed as well, and you can see here we've got a little bit of a goop going on. This is our kind of, I don't know what ratio I put it in. I put it in like a, probably a 30% powder to 70% cyanoacrylate. So I've got some regular cyanoacrylate glue, and I've also got some dental powder. So basically this thin pink powder that they use to repair dental dentures and whatnot, and I find it gets this really nice color balance in between, as well as being really well sandable. So we've made that kind of mixture along here. The reason being is that this kind of top panel sunk in a bit, and the sides of the fuselage were quite proud, so I'm using that thickened out a little bit to help improve kind of the dispersion of the the two halves. I've done the same on the underside. There was a bit of a step in between the left and the right fuselage. Not a huge issue. I don't think it was down to the cockpit at all, because when I fitted it, it fit absolutely perfect. So I think it must have been down to me not properly gluing everything and rushing through it. That might have more than likely what happened. But basically we've gone along the entire fuselage where the seams and joints are going to be, and we've placed that kind of dental repair powder and cyanoacrylate glue in all the seams. This was done actually this was actually split wide. For whatever reason, when the cockpit was fitted, everything fit fine, and then as soon as I put the nose cone in here, it decided to split the nose wide open, so it was only this part here. So this is absolutely flush. We've checked this, but this is basically the Bondic. So there's some Bondic resin injected into that crack, and it was sanded and polished smooth. So once we get the rest of the seams all taken care of, then we'll come back with a primer and we'll check and make sure that that's actually sanded flush. But from reflection wise, it looks like it's all one continuous piece, which is nice. And it hasn't ballooned to the point where it takes off the proportions, which was extra nice, because that would have been absolutely detrimental to the finish here. We've also got the exhaust put in place. I don't know if I can get you guys down in there, but our exhaust is all in place, all the metal polish is in there. It looks, from a distance, if you get up close, then you can kind of see, well, there's a little bit of a tarnish here and there, but at a distance that you're going to be looking at it, being judged on a table, it's going to look fine. But for right now, that's basically the fuselage done. We've gone ahead and moved on to the wings and the undercarriage. So we have the undercarriage, the main body of the undercarriage here, all done and painted. Now there's a couple of little pipes in here. Some of those are going to be painted blue, the other ones are going to be painted yellow. The blue ones are for the oxygen system, and then the yellow ones are for the fuel, for most Russian aircraft, I think up until the Sukhoi 27s and maybe possibly into the T-50 slash Sukhoi 57s, most of the fuel lines are color coded red, yellow, and the electricals are color coded red, and then the oxygen lines are color coded blue. So for the MiG-21 at least, that's holds true. So we're gonna paint those fuel lines yellow and whatnot, and then we've also gone ahead and done a slight wash in there just to kind of bring everything out a bit. It's not going to be too dirty because this is a well-maintained Romanian MiG-21. It hasn't got a lot of dirt, so we might add a dusting of concrete or gray later on just to kind of bring it down a little bit, but other than that, that's where we're at. So we're going to go ahead now and we're going to start taking care of all of these little oxygen bottles that are going to be placed in the landing gear wells. And where are they here? Yeah, so all the little bottles are going to go down into the landing gear area. Those can get closed up, and then we can actually put the landing gear bay into the fuselage, close that up, make sure all the seams are taken care of, and then we can actually go ahead and start working on the primer. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll come back when those oxygen bottles are done and everything's placed and ready to go, and then we'll glue this up, and then hopefully our cyanoacrylate and dental mixture will be nice and cured, and then that way we can go ahead and start sanding that down as well. So we'll be back when that's ready to go. Alright guys, welcome back. So as you can see here, now we've got the bottom half of the fuselage down on the main body of the MiG-21. We've also gone around all of our seams that we applied that dental mixture and cyanoacrylate to. We've taken care of all of those little seams and steps right around the nose of the fuselage here. Those have been smoothed out, and we've gone ahead and put down the landing gear bay inside here. So that received the gun quash. We've also put in the oxygen bottles and the auxiliary air bottles, as well as the landing lights, which are going to be retracted in this case. And then we've also put the little masks that were provided with the Eduard MiG-21 kit in there. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is put on the main wings, or the top of the wings anyways. So we'll just get some tape out here so we can tape them down. Now depending on which, this is when you have to kind of do your research as far as what loadout you're putting on, because there are these two little holes here, and those are for, I believe, air probes, and there's also these holes here on either side for the outboard and inboard pylons. For our purposes, we've got on the MiG-21 at least only the outboard pylons where our fuel tanks. The inboard pylons cannot carry fuel tanks on the wings, so we're going to have two fuel tanks in the outboard, and then we're also going to have the pylons for the R-550 Magic missiles on the inboard pylons. So for this, we're basically going to take some Tamiya tape here, and we're going to get some smaller pieces kind of ready to go. I like to kind of prep and think about what task I'm going to be doing prior to actually putting glue on a plastic, because that can kind of lead to misaligned parts. It can also lead to things not fitting the way you expected them to, and it's just easier to be prepared than it is to kind of just rush into things without thinking about it. So, but I will kind of show you one thing here that we've just got to be careful of when we're putting the wings together. Is, for instance, we've put our wing on here, and we've got little to no gap on the top when that's all fitted in. But if we turn the part over, you can see that that little, you know, the gap between the fuselage, so that can be quite quite pronounced if we don't do this properly. So that's the first kind of joint that we're going to get fixed. So we're going to probably glue along the inside of the fuselage where the wing meets the fuselage there. We're going to get that secured first, but we're also going to be very careful. We're only probably going to affix the glue to the front, the leading edge and the trailing edge. We're not going to focus so much around the middle of the wing, even though the thin glue might run with capillary action into here. It's not going to be very a large amount. So when we do that, we're just going to keep a slight pressure on it as we glue it. That way we don't get any bubbling right along where that seam is, because if we get bubbling, if we get the glue pushing out, then we're going to have a big mess, because that is, you know, if the aircraft is you know, on its back and you're looking underneath the fuselage, or, you know, if you're looking at it from an angle, any sort of bubbling of the polystyrene coming through is going to be quite noticeable. So we're going to try and avoid that as much as possible. So we'll go ahead and do that first. So I've got two different glues here. I've got my methyl alpha ketone, my MEK, and then I've also got my normal Tamiya extra thin. So we're going to go ahead and kind of position that nicely. I think what I'll do is just put one quick piece of tape here just to hold the front end in. And then again, we're going to kind of go from the front here, and I'm just going to keep slight pressure on it. And then from the back there as well, and just a little bit more, just to make sure she's seated nice. And then I'm going to take some clips. I'm just going to have that hold down there. And then we'll just go ahead and start working our way around. A little bit more in there. Another clip. Now that's a fairly flat surface, so it's not going to, because when you've got two kind of surfaces that have a hollow point in the middle, if you press down right here, you're going to get this kind of, you know, an open mouth type thing on like a leading edge or a trailing edge. But there's enough of a flat surface here that we're not going to be worried about that. You could also alternatively get some clamps that aren't as forceful. So that's all kind of gone in there now, so we can go ahead and put some more, just a thin little amount on the seam. And we're just going to kind of hold that in there. So I'll probably hold this for a few seconds here just to make sure that the glue bites down and stuff. So I'll hold this, drink my coffee, and we'll come back when that's all done. Okay, so we've gone ahead and glued that seam. We've waited for it to dry nicely, and as you can see here, you know, we've got no glue bubbling out from that little seam, so that's nice. And we can go ahead and work on the leading edge of the wing here. As you can see, it's quite a big bit of a gap that we've got to kind of nail down. So we're going to kind of work along this slowly. We're going to kind of clamp this first, because I don't think there's going to be any of that pressing out issues. Yeah, so we might need a couple more clips just to make sure that we've got a nice even kind of pressure across. Yeah. I think what we'll do is start on the forward trailing edge. We'll just put a little bit of a dollop in there, because when we clamp it down, it's just going to kind of run down the rest of the seam as we glue it. Put another little bit in there, let it zip through, and kind of space it out a bit. One. I think I might need to put a little bit more pressure all the way down, because there are some parts that are raising out a bit. Well, a little bit of overkill, but at least we got a nice nice closed gap along here, so we'll let that glue sit in. We'll go ahead and put the other wing on, and then we'll come back when we're all ready to go, and we'll start. I think what we'll probably start doing is putting on some of the cooling intakes here. So I'll just put this down there. So we've got a couple of other small little parts to do on the back. So we've got some air intakes here and here. We're not going to be worried about those bumping off. I'm worried about this little photo etch piece here that's going on top. Might leave that right until the end when we go ahead and put primer down and we're ready to put paint. But yeah, we're going to get those little fittings put on first, as well as one up here on the top of the spine. And you know what, let me just double check. So we've got our parts here. So we finished the cockpit. That was a wonderful joy to put together. Yeah, so when we've got all the rest of the fuselage put together, there's going to be a couple of, I've got some photo etch pieces that are going up top here. I've also got the antennas for the UHF and TACAN systems, and then we've also got some of the flare dispenser pods and the cooling hoses for the radar and all that. So once we get the wings mounted, then we'll go ahead and we'll start doing all of the small little details to make it a LanceR conversion on the exterior. So we'll see you guys back when we're ready to start doing that. Okay, so we're back now. We've gone ahead and put on a couple of the small ventral intakes along the back side of the fuselage here and here on both sides. And we've also added the stabilization fin at the back, as well as some of the actuators for the flaps, and the probe sensors here on the wingtips on both sides. And we've also gone ahead and added in the small little vents here on either side of the fuselage, the 20 millimeter gun, or sorry, 23 millimeter gun, and we've also installed the rear air brake. We've put this in the closed position, so that's how we're going to be displaying it. So because we're working with several different PE pieces here, or photo etch, we've got the indications for the photo etch pieces on the top of the wings from the Eduard set, and then we're also going to be working on a huge amount of photo etch going on for the sensors for the VOR and the TACAN systems, as well as vents and some other resin pieces from the Icaerodesign. So we're first going to start off with the little stabilization plates that run on either side of the 21. So we've got an indication here on the Eduard photo etch set, and it's telling us that this is facing forward, and this is going to be our left wing and our right wing. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly snap those off of the Photo-etch fret. And then we're just looking for any other, at least on the top side anyways, we're looking for any sort of bits that might be sticking out that would kind of stand out, and we don't have any of those, so just making sure I'm keeping this in the correct orientation. I'm just going to put it down here for a second, and I'm also going to grab our cyanoacrylate, and so I've got our regular CA glue here, and I'm also going to grab a smaller little kind of bottle cap so that I have something to stick it to. And so what I'm basically doing here is I'm going to sharpen up a toothpick so I have a nice fine point to apply the CA glue. So I'm just going to try and get it to a point where I can see it best. The great thing about the MiG-21 set from Eduard or any other kits is they usually give a really good indication on their parts where the photo etch goes. So you can see here there's a faint line right in the middle of this kind of brace here, and that's exactly where our photo etch is going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit more. So we're just going to put a little bit of CA down here. Now this isn't a thin CA, it's more of a medium. So with that, we've got a little bit more control over where it goes. And there we go. Okay. Almost thought we lost it there. Okay, so we've got our photo etch piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some smaller kind of dots. I'm going to try and control where exactly the CA is going to go. I'm just putting a little bit on the tip. I'm just going to kind of run that bead down the middle of that strake. Now that I've got that there, I'm going to take some kind of flat tweezers and I'm going to grab the piece. I know it's kind of hard to see, so I'll try and get some more light in there. So, just going to get some and there we go. So I'm just going to come on from the front and just look at and make sure that these things are actually straight and vertical. Just gonna get down to eye level. Make sure that that's nice and straight. Close one eye. Just kind of judge. That looks to be about perfect there. So, in case any of you guys are wondering, these stands are from Flight Pose. They come in a small, medium, and a large. They're really great for, you know, rather than letting this sit down on the actual table. You know, we've got those probes on the wingtips on the underside, and we don't want those damaged because they're quite a fragile part. But we can add them on and keep a nice sort of clean frame to work on, and then that way we can add. We don't have to go ahead and paint stuff separate. We can kind of keep it on the aircraft and paint it all as one. So I'm just cleaning it, that little groove there where the photo etch is going to sit in. And just with the edge of a knife, I'm going to go ahead and cut the second streak off of the fret. And this is Icaerodesign doesn't actually include these because it expects that you're going to build it off of the Eduard kit, which already contains the photo etch. So again, we're just going to go ahead and clean. Any sort of bits, excess parts of the photo etch fret on there. So we got that all cleaned off now, and we'll go ahead and apply the CA glue in the same sort of manner that we did previously. So again, we're taking a small amount of the CA glue on our sharpened stick. I'm just going to apply a couple of smaller little dots. Of glue, and then kind of just run it down the middle and put it straight up. Clean that off. And we'll come in with our flat tweezers. Get a nice grip on the piece. And then set it down on that groove. I have that one the wrong way around. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of off camera look at how that one's aligned. Make sure it's nice and straight, vertical. Just going to kind of get rid of the excess CA glue on the tip of the toothpick here. And then just put a little bead of super glue at the front. And again at the rear. Just so we have a nice strong bond between the two parts. Okay, so we've got that done. So now, moving along in the instructions, it's kind of calling out for, that was it for the photo etch on the top side. So now we're going to kind of move on to the next bit. So the instructions are kind of calling out for us to move on to the landing gear next. We're going to kind of leave that bit for a little while. And we're just kind of moseying through. So it's looking like down here, just forward of the gun and just forward of the air brakes, underneath the auxiliary air intakes, were two other pieces of photo etch, Photo-etch 22. So go ahead and grab those. down in here. They're right near the top. And these are labeled as omnidirectional, so no need to worry about, you know, direction forward or aft. Just clean those off a bit. And then we can go ahead and actually take this and flip it over. As you can see, we haven't really damaged any of our delicate parts underneath because of those flight pose, that flight pose stand. I'm just going to adjust one of the legs here so it kind of sits a little proud. And then again, on the side of the intakes, we've got some indications on the side right here. I don't know if you can see those or not. There's a small little strake where those photo-etch pieces are going to go. So again, same thing as before. We're going to take CA glue, right along in there. And again, I'm going to have to pick it up for this, but put our strakes in here. Now these were these metal deflector plates were actually installed on the MiG-21s right when they started to get into issues with the gun smoke actually coming into the auxiliary air intakes here at slower speeds, you know, in their slower dives, and that could cause flame out of the engine. So these deflector plates were actually put in there to prevent the gun smoke from entering in these little doors here, which are the auxiliary air intake doors that open up at slower speeds to allow more air into the engine. So we'll go ahead and get the other guy put on here, and then we're going to go ahead and work on some of the photo-etch on the underside. So some of the photo-etch here at the front of the nose, and then we're going to work on working our way to the front to the back. So we'll start with the photo-etch here, and then we'll kind of move on to the RWR sensors, and then we'll go to the other kind of ventral fins and beacons, and then just kind of bounce up between the top and the bottom, work on our way to the back. So I'll get that guy put on, and then we'll come back and show you when we start putting the smaller pieces on. Okay, so we've gone ahead and kind of gotten everything ready for the main kind of pièce de résistance of the kit, which is all of the photo-etch and resin that goes into making this a LanceR C conversion. So we're going to basically start off at the nose of the aircraft, and we're going to work our way aft. I've elected to just keep the pitot tube off of the plane until we're just about to go ahead and spray it. If anything, I'm probably going to keep that off of the sprue. The way it's poured is really nice because the surface where the sprue gate attaches is actually underneath, which can be hidden, so I can use that as sort of a stand to keep it nice and sturdy. But we're basically going to work on these guys right here. Let's see if there's a bigger blow up of it. So down here underneath the nose, just forward of the auxiliary intake doors and the landing gear doors, is a little kind of antenna, and that's calling it for Photo-etch piece 3 and 4, which I'll pull out the piece here now, which mostly everything comes on this Photo-etch piece here. Now as you can see, there aren't any labels on these guys. Most of the labeling is actually in the instructions here, right at the front. So P3 is along here, and then these guys at the bottom are 4. So we're going to put these plates down first, and then we're going to put the antenna on after that. So what we'll do is just move this guy out of the way for a little bit and move in our Photo-etch here. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is basically I'm going to take a little kind of that's a fucking toothpick. What am I talking about? I'm going to take a toothpick, I'm going to kind of chop the end off, and I'm going to bite it down so I have this nice kind of flat edge, and that's going to be holding down my piece. And now what I've done is I've put it over one of the plates, and then it stays nice and sturdy and in one spot. It doesn't go flying across the room like so. And it's on the table. So there we go. So there's our little piece. Now there is surface detail on one side. So I'm actually going to get my blue tack and toothpick combo. And what I've done on the nose section here is I've just marked where exactly those are in accordance to the references I've seen online. I'm going to grab a new sort of toothpick here, and got some Ciego on standby. So I'm basically going to take this and just put a little dab on where it's going to go. I'm going to try and make this point as fine as possible on here so that I can pick it up and place it with extreme accuracy. Okay. And then we're just going to go ahead and place this down. Like so. Now as this is a medium CA, it's not going to completely go off right away. So we still have a little bit of time to adjust it in its final position. And then once that's in there, just press it down a bit just to make sure all the glues kind of run. Because when you press it down in that little drop, it's going to expand. And then it's going to cover all the surfaces that aren't covered by the glue. So that's the first kind of step. The second one is going to be actually putting the blade on, which is going to be a little bit more difficult. So yeah, and we're just going to take our Photo-etch here, take the toothpick with the flat end, and we're just going to hold down the piece, chop it off, and as you can see, that's the piece right there. So it's extremely tiny, so you don't want to lose those. And again, go ahead and grab a little Actually need more on there because that's drying up. So, where is lost my aggressive one. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean off the top of the bottle cap because it's gotten quite gummed up with cyanoacrylate off the past few days. I'm just going to kind of take a sanding block and grind down all of the glue. And this way I have a nice flat surface to work with. So, glue. To bottle cap. And then, really kind of precision work is needed here, so we're going to make a little dab of the CA glue and put it on top of our Photo-etch piece. Now, I don't have any accelerator, so if you had accelerator, this would be a good spot or time to use it. I'm just going to use tweezers and place that down where it's meant to go. So just kind of checking from the front down at eye level and checking to make sure that that's all nice and straight. I'm just going to pick this up here because I need to be able to get it nice and close. There we go. So, there we are. It's all nicely in there like that. Okay, so those ones are done. And I believe down on the instructions there's 1, 2, and 3 more of those left to do. So you've got 4 to do in total, so it's going to be a little bit of a hectic sort of thing. We're going to kind of keep moseying along. And we'll move on to the next sort of thing underneath. Which is going to be the, actually no, we'll probably just move on to these guys here, the RWRs. So that's calling for Photo-etch piece 9 and resin piece 12. So we'll go ahead and flip this guy back over. And get that mounted. So it's going to be right off the edge there. It's going to be just underneath the nose cone. It'll be right there. And while I'm doing that, we'll just go mark it on the other side. It's just a fine point permanent marker. We've marked where those these guys here, the radar warning receiver nubs, go, and this is part of the upgrade program to the MiG-21. So these are the sensors essentially. So I'm going to go ahead and get the mounting plate on first, which is going to be Photo-etch piece, Photo-etch piece number 9, and then the resin piece. So looking back at the instructions, resin piece 9, it's going to be these little loop things here. So those are going to be these two pieces here. So I think we'll just take off this guy first. These ones are big enough, I don't really need to put a clamp down on it, but if you feel the need, it's always an added level of protection. So, and because there's a slight curve here, what we're probably going to do is I'm going to get a piece of silicone rubber, and we're just going to give it a little bit of curvature. So just going to come line that up. It's got a nice slight curve going on it now. Perfect. Okay, so go ahead and get our super glue. Put a little gob down. Right where that's going to go. And take our Photo-etch piece. And we'll go ahead and place down that portion. So you can see there, it's all nicely aligned and in the right spot. And we've bent one of the wing fences down. Cool. So I'll have to come back and fix that. Number 12 is going to be these forward ones here. So one of the ways you can do this is you can either take a sharp hobby knife to it and cut it, or you can take a fine saw blade to do it. In our instance, we're just going to take a fine saw blade to this. Just going to kind of hold this in a firm position where it's not going to bend and I'm not going to get an uneven cut. Cut through on one side, and flip to the other side here, and start cutting it from the other side. That's all cut loose. I'll take a fine sanding stick and just smooth that edge nice and flat.
So there we go. That's a nice flat edge that's going to go on. And these on the MiG-21, they face forward, so that they're kind of on a slight angle, and that's going to be facing towards the aircraft where this end is, and the back of the aircraft's facing there. So, and as usual, take some super glue. Put it on the area where it's going to be applied. Just a small little bit. We don't need to go super crazy with it. We can go ahead and place the sensor. Now I'm going to work kind of quickly here to make sure I've got it in the right position. So you can see here, head on, it's nice and straight and level. And if we look from top down, it's facing forward. There we go. And that's all nicely aligned from the side as well. Okay. And then next up, we're looking at this part here. So one of these antenna blades, we're looking at Photo-etch 6 and Photo-etch 10. Just checking the reference there. 6, 10 is going to be, so we're looking at this part here and then the big blade right there. So we're going to go ahead and flip it over. And we're going to approximate where this is going to go. So that looks like it's just along the main kind of fuselage line is from there. So basically it looks like from where that fuselage line is right here, it's going to sit just forward of that, right along here. So we're just going to mark the back side of that plate right about there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take our block of silicone here. So we're just going to make a slight curve to the base plate. Same routine as before. A little bit of CA glue. Here the part's going down. we got the curve on that one right. So find our flat tweezers, flat pliers, where do we go? There. So because we did too much of an aggressive curve, we're just going to bend it back slightly with some flat tweezers, just so that there's more contact area between the part and the actual surface of the model. So that. And there we go. I'm just pressing it down just to make sure I've got a nice fit between the fuselage and the Photo-etch. There we go. Then we can go ahead and take our blade. And I'm just going to run this, I'm going to get it in some flat pliers. And I'm just going to run the edge in the super glue. And then just stick it down by hand. Okay, and looking from the head on, again, we're just going to make sure that it's nice and straight. And there we go. So, with this one, because it's so big, I'm going to leave it to dry for a little bit. We're just going to let it kind of sit for a while and make sure that the glue takes hold. And then we'll come back and I think next we'll actually go ahead and finish. I'll go ahead and finish off the sensor on the top, so the blade on top and the blades down here, and then we'll come back and we're going to start doing the flare dispensers. Okay, so we've gone ahead and we've attached the Photo-etch all along the tops and the bottoms. So you can see here the various, I'm just going to be careful with it here, so the various kind of antenna blades all along the backs and the sides. We've also done the RWR beacons on the back of the tail there, as you can see. We've gone ahead and done the one at the front as well. So, and then on the underside, look at the kind of two plates sitting on top of each other at the back. And then we've also got the antenna blades there underneath as well. So now, also to mention, when I broke off the blade here, the little groove that it was sitting in wasn't very deep, so it's more of just a, hey, this is kind of where it goes. It doesn't actually seat that blade itself. So what we did was we basically came in with Tamiya's scriber first to kind of make the gap nice and wide, and then once that was done, we came in with Trumpeter's scriber just to kind of make a nice little seat for that Photo-etch to kind of get right into. I find the Trumpeter one's really good for that because it's almost the exact same thickness as the Photo-etch pieces itself. So anyways, because that's all done, we're actually going to flip this over because we are going to be working on the flare dispensers. So the LanceR C upgrade to the MiG-21 included the addition of some flare dispenser pods here on the back. So the one that goes on the right side,
Yeah, so the right side of the aircraft. So we're kind of looking at it sort of like this, which is resin part number 9. And it's going to be the first one here. So we're just going to go ahead and free it from the sprue. I'm probably just going to go ahead and score it kind of lightly with the knife. And we'll score that side as well. And then just snap it off like that. And what we'll do is I'll come in with a finer sanding stick, so our green one's here from Flory, and then just kind of, is that the rough side? No, that's the clean side. So I'm just going to clean that edge up a little bit there. Okay, so there we go. Now, from the looks of this, on the instruction sheet, it seems like it just goes just forward of those guys there. And just aft of it, so it's going to be just about the front of it there. I'll get you guys on screen here in a second. So clear that up. So there is a slight curvature on the bottom here, and that's supposed to show where exactly it's going to be mounting. And you know what? I'm just going to go and get some bigger references on the computer, and then make sure we've got this in the precise spot, so we'll be right back. Okay, so that situation got itself sorted out. So basically the right kind of flare dispenser, the back of, or the back end of where the flares actually deploy is kind of right where this kind of bulbous ends is, right where the end of the flares stop. So that's where this one goes, and then the left one is actually slightly back of the so about where the second row of dispensers start on this guy is where the front of the flares start on the leftmost one. So it's just slightly offset back from the other flare pod. So that's all sorted out. I think the only thing left now, I'm just taking a quick check through. Yeah, so all we have left now is the radar cooling, and then the other stuff as well. So there's an interesting part here. So it's the rear tube coming from the back of the wing root. This rod here isn't actually included in the kit for whatever reason, but this front plate here is. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So here you can see that grill that's added in. So we're going to go ahead and put in the resin part for that, which is
this guy here. So we'll just go ahead and free it quickly from the mold block. Now that's free. We're going to take an aggressive sanding stick to work off the rest of the pour block. There we go. So it's all situated kind of nicely in there. That kind of fits all right on there, but I think, yeah, so this is supposed to be more, actually it's supposed to be a different way around. So this is actually supposed to sit right about there where the wing root begins. Just kind of sits on top, so yeah. So it looks like it's just going to sit right on top of the wing root, and then it's going to sit on top of there like that. So I'll go ahead and get that all done up. So, and then we'll sort out the tube that's going on behind it. I'm actually going to apply the CA directly to this piece. A nice thin sort of layer. And then just double checking where that's going. And suck it right on. Flip that over. Actually, it's sitting quite low now, so. You can actually go from underneath here. You can take, I'll just sharpen that off again. Take a little bead of CA glue and we'll just kind of run it on the inside edge there. Have a nice strong bond all the way around. Okay. And there we go. Oops. Yeah, so that's sitting on there now. Now, so this particular rod extends that kind of cooling duct all the way down
towards the end of the wing. So I think what I might do is take a piece of styrene rod and run it down, and then I'll take some aluminum tape and get it kind of situated in there, and then use that as sort of the cover. So let me just find where I have my rods. Screws. Just testing these out and see what kind of we're kind of working with. Yeah, that's still a little bit thick, so I think I'll have to find the smaller ones that I have. I don't know what actual thicknesses these ones are, so it's still a little bit thick. Maybe no, because it's a little bit smaller than the other one. And it kind of fits on there nice. So if I just groove that out and set it in, it should be fine. How long is that exactly? It's going just past the. Mark that. I want to cut it. Basically, how I'm going to cut this is I'm just going to take a hobby knife and just kind of chop down, and that'll give me a nice clean cut to work with. What I'll do is just flatten the edge here a little bit. Like so. Yeah, and that fits in relatively nicely. So that seat's nice and flat there now. So now what we can do is I think we'll just come in with MEK because it's a little bit quicker acting. It's not going to need a stronger kind of bond in there. Just kind of glob that in. And just with a pair of do its thing, and then run the rest of the length of the fuselage. Hold that back end down as well. A little bit more tight here. Yeah, that's seated in real nice. So, and now in order to get that, because looking at the references, it is sitting quite flush with the rest of the fuselage. What we're going to do is come in with some aluminum tape. You can use, the foil, the hobby foil stuff. I find if you need to make, raised plates or raised areas, the aluminum tape's just thick enough that it works, and it's really nice. So I'm going to grab a pair of scissors. And we'll just cut off something that's a little bit close to what we want. Yeah, it's kind of like scratch building 101. Just thinking of things that you can use. So that's roughly the size that we need. Just go ahead and mark that. Cut that off, and then I'm just guesstimating how big this piece is going to be, or going to need to be at least. So I've got there, it's about a 1/4 inch. Kind of lay it down. It's still a bit thick, so I'm going to start shaving stuff. Just nice. Trim this in up here a bit. And trim in that piece as well. And that's going to fit on there perfectly. So, that being said, go ahead and remove the paper backing from one side. Bit of, come on, stick. There we go. Okay, so we got that on. Just gonna adjust this end slightly. A little bit more down. Start flattening out any of the wrinkles. And we'll just start flattening this piece down. Start from the top, work to the bottom. Any sort of trimming on panel lines and whatnot we can sort out after the fact, but I'm just using the back of the tweezers here, and I'm kind of working from the top of that tube and where it's marking on the piece, and I'm kind of just working my way down, and then kind of pushing the end of the piece flat against the fuselage. So coming in basically from the side at a straight 90 degrees and making it nice and flat edge that this is sitting on. Right. So after the fact, we're kind of left with something like that. So all this up here we can kind of trim down. But that's extended that pipe through at the back, and that's nicely covered up at the front. So yeah, that's pretty much gonna say it for the Photo-etch here and the resin. Now they do provide the the antenna blade in the for the underside, and then they also provide the kind of plate for, up here on the top of the fuselage in resin if you wish. But we did that in Photo-etch because it's a little bit nicer. So next time you'll see us with this, it's going to be all primed and ready to go into the paint booth, and we can go ahead and start actually putting some color down onto the finished piece. So thanks for sticking through for this episode, guys, and have a good day. We'll see you next time.